The Merchant of Venice, Shylock, the Bachelor. Shylock, the Jewish moneylender, is very definitely the villain in Shakespeare's play, The Merchant of Venice. Shylock's hatred of Antonio, the Merchant of Venice himself, is a hatred so intense that he plans a horrible death for Antonio by cutting out a pound of his living flesh. This murderous intention marks Shylock as utterly sadistic and without mercy. And his defeat in the penultimate act of the play is presented by Shakespeare as a triumph of good over evil. It's part of Shakespeare's genius, however, to make Shylock the clear villain of the play, while at the same time providing us with material that makes us sympathise with him. Perhaps the most famous example of such material is the speech by Shylock that powerfully sums up the gross injustice of Antonio's past treatment of him, and goes on to claim common humanity with the Christian world, as follows. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions? Fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is. But my intention in this talk is not to examine extensive set pieces such as the one I've just read, intensely moving though such pieces might be. Instead, I want to deal with one small detail, essentially a group of only 10 words. A detail that's usually given very little attention, but I believe it to be a beautifully poignant touch by which Shakespeare humanises Shylock and makes us feel close sympathy with him. The detail in question is almost hidden in a very dramatic sequence where Shylock is raging about his daughter Jessica, who has run away from home with her Christian lover, taking with her a substantial quantity of Shylock's precious belongings, including gold and jewels. A fellow Venetian Jew called Tubal has been informing Shylock about Jessica's movements and behaviour, enraging Shylock with reports about Jessica's high spending. And the key moment comes when Tubal tells Shylock that Jessica has bought a pet monkey with a ring stolen from Shylock as payment. Shylock responds to this news as follows. Out upon her! Thou torturest me, Tubal. It was my turquoise. I had it of Lear when I was a bachelor. I would not have given it for a wilderness of monkeys. I said earlier that the small detail is a group of only 10 words, and I'll now extract these words from the speech I've just read. They are, I had it of Lear when I was a bachelor. I had it of Lear when I was a bachelor. Why do I believe these words to be so important? Consider the item that Shylock is referring to, a turquoise ring. Something valuable materially, no doubt, but he doesn't attempt to put a money value on it, as he did earlier in his conversation with Tubal, when there was mention of the loss of a diamond that was worth 2,000 ducats. Shylock emphatically shows us that the ring is deeply precious to him and that its loss is a terrible blow. This is demonstrated by the angry exclamation about his daughter's behaviour, "Out upon her!" Secondly, by his remark that hearing about the loss of the ring tortures him. And finally, by his hyperbole, "I would not have given it for a wilderness of monkeys." But the ring's preciousness is absolutely based on its personal meaning to him, its sentimental value, as we often say. And this personal meaning is because it was a gift to him from Leah in his bachelor days. Shylock, like a number of fathers in Shakespeare, Prospero in The Tempest is another such one, Shylock is a figure without a wife, and the presumption is that his wife has died some time before the action of the play has begun. His use of the name Leah, spoken to a fellow Jew who might be expected to know Shylock's family history, the use of the name Leah, especially in connection with the word bachelor, tells us that Shakespeare intends us to understand that Leah is the wife he has lost. This reference to Leah is the only one made to Shylock's late wife anywhere in the play. Shakespeare makes nothing elsewhere of the fact that Shylock is a widower, and has therefore presumably brought up his daughter Jessica himself for at least some years of her life. But now, suddenly, and under the extreme emotion of a family crisis, his daughter has rejected him and fled the family home, stealing a number of his precious belongings as she has departed. Now Leah surfaces in the play. The moment when Shylock refers to Leah and the ring associated with her is very brief, but it is an intense and important moment because it suddenly opens a window onto a new and different Shylock. The Shylock we see in a good deal of the play is an unsympathetic figure in the tradition of the senex iratus, angry old man, of ancient Roman comedy. The irascible, repressive father who controls the purse strings and hinders the fulfillment of his offspring. But the Shylock who says, "I had it of Leah when I was a bachelor," is quite a different figure. Naming his dead wife gives him a link to a human being who's precious to him, and his lamenting the loss of the valued memento of her, the ring, cannot help but draw our sympathy, especially as his daughter has clearly placed no value at all on the ring except as a cash transfer for an item she wants to buy for herself. And the item in question, a little monkey that has caught her eye in what we might guess is a street market, the item comes over to us as rather frivolous, the cute little pet that a self-indulgent young woman suddenly decides is a must-have in her life. Moreover, the word bachelor that Shylock uses to describe himself in the days when he knew Leah before marrying her and before Jessica came along, the word bachelor is an essentially young word in the sense that it conveys. Yes, there are old bachelors, of course, but the term is grounded in association with youthful days, days that are happy, carefree, bright, full of springtime vitality. This word bachelor has the function of stripping the years away from Shylock for a moment. Instead of the old grouch Shylock, we see briefly the young man with a life ahead of him, a life with Leah, until the tragic moment he lost her, of course. Near the start of my talk, I used the phrase Shakespeare's genius, and I want to come back to this in my final remarks. One often thinks of Shakespeare's genius has been linked to great speeches and elaborate language, but it sometimes reveals itself in the lightest of touches, the most economical use of words. This, I believe, is the case with the words I have focused on in my talk. In a conversation where Shylock rages about his lost ducats and jewels, his rage turning to thoughts of horrible revenge to be taken out on Antonio as a result, in the course of this conversation, a curtain is momentarily pulled back on the past, and Shylock reveals a vital layer of himself that has been buried. It is a layer that is precious indeed, more precious than any jewel. It is the young man, the carefree bachelor in love with a Jewish girl and receiving from her a love token or some kind of engagement ring. Does the average reader or audience of The Merchant of Venice ever think of Shylock as a young man in love? A man like Lorenzo, in fact, who loves Jessica in one of the two love stories in the play. Not readily, I think, but the reader or audience should do so. If the Shylock created by Shakespeare is to be completely understood, appreciated, valued, and sympathized with as a human being with the same affections and passions as us all. Thank you for listening.